we get started, let's go through these abilities one at a time.
Okay, all right, here we go.
What's our first one that we have here?
Game
This
looks
is
very
something
nice.
that I think we had in Alpha 1. This was our Blink. Is that right, Trad?
Yep, this is one of the ones that we've brought back. This was definitely, I would say, most of our favorite spells
Great.
from Alpha 1, so we had to bring it back. Even the visuals were just awesome. So
Cool.
Yeah,
Nice.
anyone who
That's
played
clean.
Alpha 1 should be pretty familiar with that.
Very clean.
You know, I'm going to set my cooldowns to 0 so I can show the abilities over and over
Smart.
again. So this is the Blink
Start
ability.
hacking.
And obviously its purpose is to close
blink.
the gap, to create a gap, to reposition. Talk to me a little bit about the use case of a Blink from the Mage's kit perspective.
Can't wait to see my grandchildren
I mean, you
playing
covered
this.
it there.
Yeah.
It's a gap opener,
True.
gap closer, whatever you want it to be. And you know, we'll showcase some kind of that. Or we'll showcase that kind of gameplay and actual action once we get to the encounter section of this this stream. But you'll
is
see
nice.
that mages will probably prefer to use this spell in
No
different ways
cooldown?
based on
No,
how
no,
you're
he-
specking the
it
mage.
doesn't. It usually does.
So if you are a
He's got a
more
GM hack.
range-based classic mage, you'll most likely use this to create space to put between you and your opponent. But like a more melee-based mage might actually want to use this to get on their opponent.
Yes,
Yeah, exactly. Like, you go
initiate.
into melee,
Absolutely.
fucking
That
Frost
feels like the
Nova.
way I would use it. And then after this, we have a
Fireball.
Let me see.
Fireball.
Before we get into the combat abilities, perhaps we use
Magma.
you know, actually, let me show the shield.
Okay.
Speaking
All
of
right,
a
let's see the
combat
shield.
mage, if you're in the middle of fighting, talk to me a little bit about the
Protective
shell.
shield absorbs. Okay, it's mana shield.
Yeah,
Got it.
this is a pretty classic mage spell that you've probably seen before. It's just a big health shield. It absorbs a bunch of damage and it has a duration, so usually you want to time it with when you're going to anticipate taking a bunch of damage at once. And we'll show that off too.
So you can't keep
in
it
a
up all
little
the
bit
time.
with
Oh
some
yeah,
of our
there's the debuff
rotations
right
that
there.
Put the mage in a little bit more
see
danger
that?
for greater payoff.
Now it's about to go
And
away
this is
right
kind of
now.
a short duration shell. Now,
That's nice.
obviously, duration excuse me, can be one of the parameters that are augmented by some of our augment abilities, so it could be potentially extended by an augment in the future, but it's essentially short duration
probably
for
maxed
those
out,
temporary hit points. Is that right? Kind of like if you're stuck in a little bit of a bind.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's the point of the duration. Like usually these health shields can be pretty strong, and so timing that is part of the balance and also part of the gameplay skill that comes into you know, deciding when to use that and when to put it on cooldown.
And then let's show off this ball of lightning. Now, John, you have done a lot of work on the tech side
Here
for
we go.
VFX with regards
see it.
to, you know, how lightning kind of interacts with surfaces from a sticky surface perspective, and you know, just establishing
It's gonna
what
be
I think
good.
is a really cool even style guide and shape language for this electricity. And talk to us a little bit about what it took to create this.
You know, I think one of the things that helps set Ashes apart from an effects perspective is that we want our effects to be dynamically generated. We want them to interact with the world. You know, we want them to feel like they are part of the combat. So when we come to wanting to work with something like lightning, we actually want it to seek out different, you know, things in the world and stick to them. We want it to feel like you are actually in control of that lightning, not just plastered on top. So what we've been working on are kind of behavior systems where you model the behavior of the lightning and how it should work. And then, you know, those systems get put into our effects and you get a very consistent, repetitive, not repetitive in like its motion, but how it behaves, result from it.
Yeah, I think it looks great. I love this ability too, and when we get into combat, you guys will see kind of its use case.
I don't think it looks as good as it could. I think it could
I
go
will
way
say
better.
this is one of my favorite spells just to use, not only
Yeah,
visually,
it looks
but
like it looks okay.
for reasons
but
you'll see later,
better.
but like it's a zoning tool. It's like a mobile zoning tool.
Yeah, I like
it's
the
great for
mechanic
applying
of it.
status effects because it's hitting
Just, like,
very
visually.
rapidly. There's lots of different ways you can use this thing to your advantage.
Like if the lightning
This one was so much fun to make.
The circle and then
People aren't supposed to be using. I have cooldowns. I'm sorry, I set my cooldowns to 0, so I'm launching like a whole bunch of them. But I just really love the effects. I think it's so cool.
It was just fun to figure out how to get it to stick to the floor and make it actually kind of walk along, you know?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Now we also have
Blink is good.
A little bit on the frost side.
Okay.
Let's talk about this ability. And this one is a blizzard.
All right.
Explain a little bit about Blizzard, Keenan.
Well, they don't give people paid overtime.
Blizzard is a very complicated spell. I have thought a lot about Blizzard. It rains projectiles down that deal damage, but also does a fairly frequent burst that applies chilled stacks.
That's okay. That looks nice.
It also has a little bit of mobility into it, which is something we talked about quite a bit. We felt that it was important to maintain some control over this ability, even though it's very powerful, just to give players that maximal sense of agency as they are destroying the battlefield.
Oh yeah, I mean I love the visuals here as well, John. The decals on the ground with the frost and the impacting ice shards. Now, is this
I think the visuals look really good on that.
Talk to me a little bit about kind of how you
because
create from a
there's
visual
not too
effects
much going on
perspective
with it.
These individual elements and,
I think
their
that's good.
reusability.
One of the things that's really good about working here is that we are involved very early on, and we can look at the things that are going to be challenging from what design and the engineering team want to build from an effects perspective, and then inform them on those things. And when we want really cool frost zones all over very uneven terrain that they build out like cool displacements in the ground. There's not a button for that. We have to go and work really closely with tech art and figure that stuff out. And then how do you make sure that the particle systems can drive those decals and they can be animated? So being part of that process very early on, working with the concept team to identify what the challenges are going to be, and then really being able to communicate with those teams about how to accomplish it before it hits our desk.
Oh, that was cool.
Is really powerful.
Is that like Cone of Cold, kind of?
Absolutely.
I remember when I showed you, or when you showed me your first iteration, John, and I was like, how does it look when you move? And you were like, what?
Yep. That is definitely one of the things that you are so very good at, Keenan.
I wonder if you cast it on a targeted
you take
area.
like whatever system we have designed, and you find the one thing almost immediately that we didn't account for, and I appreciate you for that, because once we fix it, it looks so good.
Can.
Absolutely. It is a very difficult process, kind of creating these abilities in a way that obviously answers the call from a design perspective in the kits that we want to create and the interconnectivity between those kits, but also establish what players want to see out of a class fantasy. And the Mage is a very near and dear to many people's hearts. I know it is to mine as well. And there's just so much space here to create strong visual languages around the different types of magics and elements that are utilized. It's a very strong part of the Ashes of Creation class kits. So we have another ability called Cone of Cold.
Okay, so they just literally took the exact name. Okay, Cone of Cold. I wonder what that does.
Ice spells have a tendency to be
It did a
complicated.
Cone
This
of
is another
Cold.
one.
That's crazy.
This is a cone spell. I mean, it's pretty simple in that regard.
Acronym for that is
enemies
cock.
in front of you. You apply what is one of our elemental status effects called Chilled. Does as you would probably expect. It slows the target, and it can stack for an increasing amount of slow per stack you put on them. But if you might notice that there are some little crystals that it leaves on the ground there, and each one of those is a proximity ice mine that if someone steps on, it will explode and apply additional stacks and damage.
Oh wow!
So it's really good at creating area denial between your opponent and yourself.
Okay,
and
that's cool. I wonder how much you can modify these spells.
Escalate your stats effects a little quicker.
Because I think that's what's really going to make this game interesting.
I've aggroed this monster. You guys will notice that it's not pathing towards me, but that's because
it's a flower.
I want to show off some additional abilities.
Lightning Strike.
Excuse me. That require require a target. So, Lightning Strike. Talk to me about what Lightning Strike does.
Sure. This one's a little more straightforward. It's kind of one of your bread and butter single target abilities. You can charge it for varying.
This reminds me a lot of the.
So you can either release it really soon to apply stats quickly.
What was it called?
The electrified status effect in the lightning
17
category,
damage,
or you can charge it up longer and do more damage.
The weapon in Elden Ring.
So I guess I'll take
the
this
Fallen Star Beast weapon.
Talk a little bit about what you might be noticing on the icons on these enemies. But once you build 10 stacks of electrified on the target, you'll notice that they'll get another icon on them, and that is the shocked status effect. And what that means is that when you hit them with damage, once that thing is applied, it will consume.
Oh shit! They can't. What the fuck?
Each hit you do to them while that's active to do or proc additional.
They got
damage.
Legs.
So I'll show that here. You can see that electrified.
Reduce magical mitigation. Okay, so it's just like shock, kind of in PoE. You get shocked, you take more damage.
One thing also
that's cool
is interesting is this elemental empowerment. Talk to me a little bit about elemental empowerment.
Yep, so you might be wondering, well, how am I going to get all the way to the number of status effects I need if my abilities are on cooldown and, you know, I need 10 of them to get there? Well, the wand combo is, or, well, your weapon combo in general on the mage is very good at doing so because it will take the elements of the last spell you cast and for about a 5-second period or so, apply that element in status effect applications.
Oh, you can see like the 10
as you're attacking.
Look at
so
that.
you might see that happening here.
That's cool.
So let's show off a little bit of that. Of that interaction after I kill this guy real quick.
Gotcha, bitch.
And the next one, and how
that looks way cooler.
work on those types of status.
When he has all the
missions.
buffs on him.
So what's a good promotion effect that I can do between electricity and frost right now?
Okay, that's badass.
Usually I like to stick with frost first. So I'll open with, do we want to show frostbolt?
Yeah, we can show frostbolt.
Let's do that. So this is a single target projectile attack that applies 2 stacks of chill to the enemy. And then after that, hit him with a few wand attacks.
Okay, it freezes
Now you'll
him?
see that you've gotten a frozen status effect on him. And then he timed that really well right there. But like in that very last frame, you'll see that he hit him with a lightning effect, which triggers the Shadis. It's not even a condition, it's just a reaction. And that just triggers a bunch of damage. So that's a good way to get your burst damage if you're rotating your spells.
So if you shock something while it's frozen.
Yeah, that's super cool.
That's cool. Yeah, I like that.
Cool.
All right.
Yeah, that particular interaction
so it's like
is
Genshin
by far
Impact.
my favorite thing about this mage.
Yeah, I like the.
Yeah, they got that from Genshin
you know, the
Impact.
ability for a spellcaster or just any player with their archetype, having the option to kind of weave in between those rotations and those spells, and to create successful combinations within their kit that you amplify the DPS or the status conditions or the control effects or, you know, whatever it is your end goal. Having a rotation that emphasizes your ability to succeed or fail in those combos, I think is compelling. From
it makes it way more interesting, rather than just hitting the same spell over and over.
They really are intended to be rotational.
But I will do I will hit the same spell over and over.
Get introduced to a kit that might otherwise feel like just a disparate set of spells that don't really belong together.
Okay, that's
this
cool.
is how just one way that we're really making them
it's like a CC.
Feel connected, and it's not the only way. You'll see some other synergies that are a little bit more organic with a few of these other spells that we have yet to get to. But that's kind of the crux.
That's kind of cool.
Of how we're getting those rotational elements down.
Now talk to me.
Chain Lightning shattered that for you.
I know. I timed it so that it would.
That was cool.
It would essentially hit the target while
the Chain Lightning was badass.
Application applied. I used another ability called Chain Lightning. Talk to me about Chain Lightning.
It's pretty similar to Lightning Strike, except it's more of an AoE role that it's filling. So
that's way cooler.
You won't see it here because you're only attacking one target, but if there were multiple targets, you would see lightning branch off from the main target that you have to nearby additional targets.
Let's see some fucking
so it's really
Sith
good at
Lord
applying
shit.
Its status effect in a more AoE scenario, which we will also show you soon.
Okay, all right, he's going to do it.
I can. Sorry, I spawned a few more targets just to demonstrate.
All right, let's do it.
Let me sleep them all. Talk to me a little bit about sleep.
So this is an AoE CC that breaks on damage.
An
it's
AoE
for,
CC?
Oh
my god!
And setting up a window, but you can't just DPS them down while they're sitting there weak. So it's kind of
ball lightning.
It's a trade-off. It's very good,
Blizzard,
especially if you're in a more organized group that knows to hold off and
that's pretty cool.
Kind of control the battlefield without just
because it hit
everywhere.
That combo right there, the red buff. There's Chain Lightning.
Yeah, that is super cool. But now, John, talk to me a little bit about the ability for this lightning to kind of connect with these different points of collision.
So, first, working with this combat team so early makes things like the idea that they want to be super twitchy and, you know, rotate the player while they're casting it very obvious from the start as a, you know, a huge challenge. So when we go about designing these systems, we're looking for not only does it look good, but is it performant? And, you know, building out the systems that can look for all of the players, the ground, collision objects like trees or rocks, and not only like collide them, but avoid them, is just super satisfying.
Yeah, I totally agree. And that's one of the cool things, you know, you were talking about, like looking for that collision. And one thing I want to demonstrate on that comment is, let me see if I can find a good spot to showcase that here.
I don't like the health bars. Yeah, I don't either. I've said that multiple times.
Right here.
I think like the nameplates and UI needs like especially actually, like the indicators, like the name there. Bro, that reminds me of like 1999.
Okay.
Yeah, like like basically every other game has better nameplates than that.
Rock. Oops, sorry guys. I'll launch around this area here.
Okay, chain lightning.
Oh, that looked so good. Did you guys see that arc? That was so cool.
All hacks.
And you can rotate while you're casting. So we want to really pay attention to that player agency that's been so important for the combat team. You know, if you're able to move and rotate and get out of the way, and your effects suddenly disconnect from you or don't feel like you're in control of them anymore, it doesn't look right. And we really want it to look and feel interactive and fun. You know, we don't want you to turn the effects off. We want you to enjoy it.
Yeah.
I'm definitely not used to seeing such like grounded lightning in games and MMOs especially.
I am a mage player, and bad lightning angers me. So it was just not allowed. Like, we had to do
that
better.
Is really cool. Let me see it again. Oh my god.
It's still very much a work in progress, but we're definitely on the right path, and it's performant. And, you know, I think another aspect of this that's really cool is you're looking at it as lightning right now, but the same system that does lightning does the ice crystals, does the airstrike roots. There's all kinds of different behaviors that these very performant systems can handle.
Absolutely. All right, next up we have
that
Arcane
is cool.
Volley. What is Arcane Volley?
This is a single target arcane spell. Unlike the other ones we've shown you, this doesn't have any particular element associated with it. And it might look a little underwhelming at first, but you can use this pretty quickly. It's on a 2-charge cooldown, and there's a particular synergy that we all like to use.
The chain lightning is cool.
If you haven't figured it out, it's how it synergizes with the shocked status effect. The shocked status basically says with each hit, it triggers additional damage, and Arcane Volley is a perfect candidate for that synergy.
You know, let me just make sure this guy's wings are good to go. Trad, I would love for you and I to perhaps swap places here, and for you to walk us through some of these more elaborate combinations. One thing that is really cool, guys, I don't know, it was about a year ago or so, we showed off this particular Thunderbolt gliding mount, and we put a little bit more work. Jason's been putting a little bit more work into the glide mechanic, and let's see if I can set myself up. I want to fly you over to a little location, Trad, where you can demonstrate some of these combos. So I think there's a plateau that's kind of near here. Let's see if we can do this. Oh god.
Oh wow.
And we're doing it.
What
okay, so
fuck?
this is kind of the gliding distance.
Oh my god.
That you can develop a little bit with these gliding mounts. So there's some good amount of distance traveled, I think. Oh my god, I pulled a little bit too many troops. Hold on.
Yeah, that's a really I really like the way that mount works, man. That's awesome.
Reset.
Let me reset.
Okay.
All right, wait. We're good. Let's just walk over. Actually, no. I'm gonna fly to a little safer spot.
So are these mounts like flying mounts that a lot of people can get since they're gliding and not actual flying?
Oh, and he's T-posing. Don't mind him.
You know.
He's good.
It's beta, guys.
Tell him to go away. Up, and we got another one. And he died.
Okay.
Okay, we're good.
What is Ash Creations and MMO?
Let me just, hold on. My God, I hope I don't die. Alright, get ready. We're gonna swap over here. Why are there so many creeps on this hill?
Holy shit, yeah.
Oh, no. I'm sorry, guys.
Oh my gosh.
Give me 1 second. Let me just see if I can
Can't he just turn them off? Can't he just delete them?
We're good, we're good, we're good.
Just turn them off. Problem solved.
They reset? They reset. Nope, they're trying to path to me. They're very angry. Very angry. Oh. Why won't they leash?
They have a super long leash radius.
Okay. Trad, let's you and I swap. What do you think? You want to swap? And we'll do this over here?
Yeah, good luck, Trad.
Hopefully they will reset.
Success here.
Yes. Just
Alright.
a big AoE pull.
Alright, we're gonna swap. Give me 1 second. And we are now swapped, or we're swapping. Sorry, Trad, come on over. And show us some of the magic in the combos.
Okay, let's see this. This is what matters for mages, right? Because like the elemental combos is what's really cool. Mobs move in a straight line. Yeah, it's not finished yet.
All right.
I mean, it's not even an alpha yet.
I'm gonna do.
It's more like a. This is mainly a proof of concept more than anything.
Got a big pull.
That's a lot of mobs.
Alright, so first I'm going to thin out this encounter a little bit.
It's never coming out? Oh, okay.
Demonstrate one of the more single
I just want you to know, Trad, real quick, that prior to you thinning out the herd there, that if it wasn't for my training all of those creeps, you would not have had this a spectacular opportunity to just showcase the sheer AoE potential in this kit.
Oh, I see. We're skipping straight to that then. Alright.
Alright,
and he can do it without the cooldowns too.
No pressure whatsoever. Alright, no, let's set the cooldowns back too.
Your cooldowns back on, yeah.
He can do it.
Oh, yeah.
Alright. Doing it live.
Let's do it.
Let's see. First.
So walk us through kind of what you're going to use.
So, because this is going to be more of an AoE combo, I would say one of the better rotations for this is almost one of the more Battle Mage-like rotations. So this is going to be something you could almost expect from, like, maybe Mage Fighter or something like that. You know, I'm going to equip the Great Blade. So this is just to show that, you know, mages use non-conventional weapons in Ashes of Creation. We're going to show that off soon, especially with what we showed you earlier, the Elemental Empowerment. This will actually apply to all things that you hit in your cleaving radius with the greatsword.
So this is a.
So here we go.
No, Trent.
Okay.
Oh God.
I see what they're trying to do.
I canceled my blizzard.
That was a rip.
Oh, that's so good.
Okay. Yeah, he
many
ran
mods,
in. Yeah,
dude.
this is.
Oh,
I feel like I'm watching
Maybe
another
they'll
classic WoW
maybe they'll
hardcore
reset.
compilation.
Now you're reset. You're good. Okay, guys, I just had to set Trad up to die like that. I apologize. I just wanted to just showcase that the mage is not a literal god, like in many games. That if you overpull and you bite off more than you can chew, you're still gonna die.
Sounds like he's just got the wrong talents.
I love it. We can't ever get it the first try, right? That would be a boring MMO.
No, that would be very boring. There's a little bit
actual
of
gameplay. Yeah. Now you know it's real.
Difficulty challenge here.
That's cool how you can teleport to like different areas that are like 3D.
Nice. Not bad. Kind of like a little puzzle to get back.
I wonder if warriors can do any sort of like teleport, like a jump or something.
All right, let's see if we can get a little bit.
Blink
of a
is
better
cool. Yeah, I like
here.
the blink.
All right, I'm gonna shelf the AOE one and go to the single target one, and then we'll do the AOE one again after that.
I feel like the battle mage, like the sword,
Here we go.
it's an interesting idea, but I don't really think that this shows it off very well.
You're gonna need your wand.
Like I think the best example of like a battle mage sword is like the Moonlight Greatsword in Elden Ring. I feel like that's what a lot of people want to see. Or like
Red
Mage
in
Final
shatter.
Fantasy 14, yeah. The ball needs to be faster. I actually don't think the ball being slow is the problem.
Nice.
I just think it's the visual is boring.
I love that ball.
It feels like most of the damage here comes from, if this is what they're trying to design it as,
Oh, you're making quick work of these.
the
Chad.
damage
Not
really
bad.
comes with like the interactions between the
that's
elements.
the single target rotation I like a lot, at least with this kit. Once you start introducing some of these other elements in here that we're not going to show you this time, but you'll get to see them eventually, it really opens like a whole realm of possibilities. Actually, we could even try it on this one. This guy's got a lot of health.
This guy takes a few rotations to bring down.
Yeah, I'm gonna really practice on this one. Let's see how it goes.
And now, Keenan, talk to us a little bit about kind of the process that goes into creating these, class kits for Alpha 2. Your strike team has been hard at work and kind of
Remember in the
developing
warrior thing?
phase
This
1
thing
and
would have
phase
already
2 of
been
these.
dead.
What exactly goes into those phases?
Well, it's pretty much a 3-phase process. Phase 1 is very open-ended. We pretty much try everything under the sun, and we put it together
You
in
said
every
for
way we can imagine,
48,000?
and we try to figure out what we like and don't like and iterate fast. Like we usually do playables like twice a week when we're in that phase.
He did.
What you guys are seeing here is actually abilities that are in the process of passing phase 2. So they are approaching levels where we are happy with how they play, happy with how they look, and some details may change over time, but generally speaking, this is what we're going for. And from here, it would mostly just be like polish and assets and just getting like external feedback and stuff like that.
Very nice. Trad, I liked your use of slumber there.
Yeah, it was smart.
You're in a precarious spot. Oh god. Oh my god, Trad, I am.
What do you guys
literally
think about
on the
this
edge of my
combat?
seat just watching this, hoping you don't turn into ash. Oh god. Trad. Ow.
Oh, one fucking second. Yeah, it's,
gosh, that was
I think it's
crazy.
okay for
I wanted to make
pre-alpha.
it look close, It's good for the audience.
Yeah.
I do. I think it's okay.
Yep. Me too. That's when I die. It's because it's
Yeah, I mean it's dramatic effect.
Yeah, agreed. Totally.
All right, should we set our health back up, or do we have to wait for regen here? Do it the
you
classic
can
way?
set it.
This is
You
all
can,
movement while
you can
casting. Looks
negative
really
nuke
good.
yourself.
Yeah,
Dude, the
yeah.
aggro
I agree
range
with
on
that.
these things. I see why you aggro everything so often.
Do you see what I mean? This is what I'm having to deal with right now.
Yeah, I do think that if they improve the nameplates,
That's
I think
well
the
done.
visuals
You
of the
see
game
this,
will look a lot
audience?
better.
Utilize elements of the terrain to obstruct the pathing from the monster while we have yet to stand up the right pathing to deal with that. Oh, it's so good. This guy's a little boy though. He's not too bad.
Okay.
This is just more of like the single rotation kit.
Yep.
And you do
Looks
not have
okay.
to build your mage down this elemental path, right? That's one of the design elements of this kit, is that there are a lot of different paths that you're able to take the mage down, not just the lightning and ice path or elementals. Talk to us a little bit about kind of the composition of abilities that are intended between utility, defensive, gap closers, and mobility, DPS oriented ones.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of what we've been demonstrating a little bit with some of these other ones. Like this shell has definitely saved me more than a few times. Slumber as well. Like
Oh, lightning needs to be
a lot
location
of
based instead of always moving.
defensive
I hope they're
utility
able
goes
to.
into
You're
the
able to
mage being
modify
able to
spells
sustain
like that.
themselves, when they're having situations like this where
Thanks, use the bathroom. Be right back.
detected by mobs and they weren't quite prepared for it. And I think that's really what rounds out the kit for classes like this. It's not all about just dishing out DPS all the time. It really comes down to those like situational things and using those things intelligently to come out on top.
Nice.
Let's see if we can get an AoE encounter here.
By the way, if you want to turn around, Trad, you're able to you can do like 1, 2, and 3, just kind of in the middle, just face directly into that dirt area there, and just numpad 1, 2, 3, and it'll spawn just right in front of you. And just turn slightly. Yeah, there you go. Perfect.
All right, classic AoE encounter here. Let's go.
And guys, just to give you context here, as Trad's doing this, again, we were taking a little bit of a direction here with this showcase. We wanted to kind of give you just how we do things from a combat arena perspective and development perspective, and how we iterate. As Keenan was talking about, you know, there are multiple iterations that occur during Phase 1 development, twice a week almost with that strike team. And they use arenas that are a little bit lower weight than the than the Ashes of Creation world, and that's kind of the combat arena that has things like dummies and, you know, just a lot of different design-oriented test subjects that are helpful. One of those is just spawning monsters as you need it.
Yeah, one of our guiding theories is that the more iterations we can execute on, the better the game will be. So we're all about minimizing that time to iteration.
Yeah, that's something that's also really important for us. When you guys are iterating so quickly, you know, we want to make sure that the systems that are using that animation to really drive the effects don't break every 4 days because you guys decided to change it up. We really want to only address changes for, you know, major differences in how the ability functions. So these systems are pretty robust.
Yeah, and I noticed there, Trad, when you were swinging with your greatsword, you had that elemental. Is it elemental empowerment?
Elemental empowerment. Yeah, that's kind of what I was alluding to earlier. Like, it's not just the wand that interacts with these different abilities. Different weapons have different synergies with class abilities, which just it introduces that extra level of depth, right? It's like, you know, how can I maximize the effect of this? And, you know, it's like I'm trading, in this case, my ranged potential for the ability to apply these status effects in a more AoE regard, which makes the greatsword a lot better for dealing with packs than the wand. And, you know, sometimes you'll even be
I can't see a reason
based on the situation, right?
Why you'd want to go into melee, though.
Swap their weapons based
you know?
on you know, what they are coming up against.
Like, why would you even want to do that?
Answers to different situations.
Seems like a bad idea.
For it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, just to be clear, the greatsword was dealing so much damage there because they were shocked.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's good. It's a good AoE weapon, but by itself, it's not that good. It was really the shock that was making it deal so much damage.
Yeah. Well, oh, you got another little friend there. You could probably press 4 a couple times. You want to grab a couple more of those. Oh, yeah,
I think we'll just put him to sleep.
Yeah, that guy's
call.
gonna kill him for sure. He's like half health.
Well, guys, as always, you know, this is a continued work in progress. Alpha 2, as you know, is a big test period for us. A lot of the archetypes are going to be online to a significant level with a significant amount of abilities that are going to be available to kind of test. And as part of our monthly showcases where we show you development in progress, this is our opportunity to collect feedback on what you guys have seen. Keenan, do you have some questions that are most relevant for your teams with regards to the iteration and development of this combat that you'd like to posit to the community?
Yeah, I would say there's 3 major things that I'm interested in gathering feedback on, and the first one stems from player agency, which is one of the things that we prioritize the most.
Okay.
And so in the context of this kit, what that looks like is how people feel about the amount of mobility that it has during spells.
I think
People
that
may have
seems
noticed
fine.
That the
Yeah,
cleric
that's
was
fine.
walking out of its spells and canceling them, but this mage can actually continue to cast. They just have a slower movement speed. How do people feel about that? How does it look?
Yeah, I think that's better. It's like an Elden
The
Ring.
second thing I'm interested in is how the transition between spells is coming across. Does it look good? Does it look clunky? How do people feel about that? And then finally, the complexity of the kit. Are people pretty happy with these elemental interactions and how they would think about them during combat, or are they interested in something more complicated or less complicated?
Well, we really only saw one, right? Which is like
awesome. And guys,
like
as always,
and electricity.
remember this is a work in progress. There is still iteration necessary. There's a lot of artwork that's still outstanding.
Yeah, it's like you'd want to see more than
passes and polish. But we are showing you, everything as it is in development, because we find that it's a very important interaction with the community to collect this type of feedback and get your guys' thoughts on the direction that we're taking. Because at the end of the day, when we launch Ashes of Creation, we want to make sure that we've had as much touch point with the community as possible, so people don't go, what game is this?
Right, yeah, of course.
But with that being said, John, Trad, Keenan, I want to thank all three of you for joining me today and showcasing the hard work that you and the rest of the team have been putting towards developing this mage and the other archetypes. I know I speak for the community when I say thank you. You guys are doing an awesome job. Very excited to see this played by
I think
by
the
players
visuals are
in
pretty
Alpha
decent.
2. And with that being said, we will see you all back on stream. Bye,
Okay,
guys.
what'd you guys think about that? 1 out of 10.
Welcome back. We'll play the video in the background. It seems like most people enjoyed the showcase.
Okay.
Ooh, you're muted for me?
Yes.
I don't hear
Steven
you.
is muted.
Whoops, my bad.
You're okay.
Okay, I'm good now, yeah. Yeah, it looks like everyone enjoyed that. So, just to give you guys, again, further context there, this was just showcasing the lightning and ice interactions on the abilities. As
Yeah,
you
there's
guys
gonna be more fucking
know
types
that
of spells,
there
I
is a
would assume.
pipeline behind ability creation. There's still outstanding artwork on the visual
Yeah, of
effects
course.
side for the fire and earth spells that we're kind of working on.
Of
We
course.
talked a little bit about in that showcase kind of our phases of development for our different archetype classes. And there are phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. And these were ready to kind of showcase, and we wanted to get your guys' feedback on that. So look
They were
forward
just
to
disappointed in the fire, Stephen. They
I
wanted fire. They want to see it
I
burn.
know.
You'll
Fire
see
is
fire in
such
the
a-
future. Stay
I hope
tuned.
so, yeah.
Absolutely.
I
We
wonder
don't
how
wanna
many
show
elements they're gonna
everything, too,
have.
by the way, we
Yeah.
want people to experience and play this as well. So
We do have quite a few questions, so I'm going to try to power through some of these.
Yeah.
Okay, here we go.
One of the things was, can we swap weapons in the middle of combat? We saw that Trad did
Yeah.
that with the great sword or great blade versus the wand.
But yeah, we've talked a little bit in the past, and this was present in Alpha 1 as well for those of
Uh-huh.
you who played and those of you who watched. You may not swap armor when you're in combat, but you may swap your weapons.
Okay, so it's like, wow.
And,
Sure.
there's obviously a few reasons of why this can be important. We're a itemization agnostic class design. So players kind of equip with items that are most necessary based on the adversary or the challenge that they're facing. And so we want that to be available for players to kind of swap with weapons.
Okay, sure.
And then there's a question regarding ball lightning. Does this charge? What's it like when it's not charged up versus charging it all the way up?
Is it bigger, maybe?
So ball lightning you cannot charge up. It's
okay.
the arc lightning that you can charge up, and that charge up is essentially additional time that's spent as a risk in exchange for additional DPS when the execution occurs.
All right. And then there are folks wondering, is there an underlying system for the skills in combat from the UE gameplay ability system, or is this a proprietary solution that we've created?
Yeah, this is our custom ability system that's been created at Intrepid. Adam and Keenan and Mike have had a significant hand in creating that. There is functionality that we need to occur in our ability system that's not capable of being done through what's natively available through Unreal Engine. And so as a result, many of our systems that we utilize in Ashes of Creations are made custom in-house in order to better facilitate our needs.
Okay.
And then folks were wondering about foliage, as it seems like it could hide your character from your own camera. Can it do something like turn transparent to you?
Oh,
you could
have like an
lose your own
outline of your
Yeah,
character or
those-
something.
yourself in the grass.
Absolutely. Those are kind of
Yeah, it's hard to know what to do with that.
Little higher fidelity types of polish that we get around to when we're out
We're
of
still
the
alpha,
guts of building, core systems and abilities and archetypes. So, part of watching our game in development is understanding that a lot of the quality of life or polish-oriented features that you would typically see in a launched game are not yet worked on from our perspective. We're very much still on the core aspects of our feature development and on our archetype and class designs.
And then the next one here, and I knew this was going to come up, which is action versus tab basic attacks when using the wand. How does it work? And just, I guess, in general.
Yeah, how do you even do like a
this is-
action
everyone
combat
was saying
wand
that this looks
attack?
more tab targeted versus.
Why
like,
would you ever
hybrid.
even wanna
So
do
they're
that?
wondering,
Yeah.
what's our plan with that? And
Alpha 2 comes out this year.
It's
for
important
sure
to note that when we talk about Ashes of Creation's hybrid combat designs, you have abilities that are skill shot oriented abilities. The Cone of Cold, the Blizzard PB AoE, the placed template AoEs, the directional line attacks that are not predicated on a target. And then we also have a mixture of abilities that require targets. We have two alternate modes of camera settings. We have the action reticle-based camera setting, which utilizes a soft lock featuring mechanic that allows the player to utilize their tab target-oriented abilities, but then also gives them an additional fidelity from an action camera perspective when they're utilizing positional-based or directional-based template type attacks as well. So our desire has always and continues to be how we can create a mixture of tab target abilities and skill shot oriented positional directional based ability usage and make something cohesive in that design.
Yeah, I think you need to have both.
That what we're achieving with that regard may not fully feel action oriented, may not feel like an action oriented game, but we've always intended to be more hybrid oriented, leaning towards tab target. So you're going to see a mixture of abilities that require the targets and that don't.
Sure.
And then you're going to have an option as the player's perspective to utilize an action camera mode, which utilizes a soft target lock feature and our reticle.
All right. And then folks are wondering, can I be
And then real quick,
ahead.
sorry, just to touch on the basic attack comment there.
Okay.
So when you have your weapon and you utilize a basic attack, you can blind fire that weapon if it has a projectile associated with it without having to have a target. In addition, if your reticle in action camera mode is over a target, you will have a soft target lock and projectiles will home to that target if within the right angle of direction, just to answer specifically the question about basic attacks.
Yeah, and to verify, or to clarify, when he's talking about ground target AoEs being like skill shots, a lot of them are, I don't know if you've played, a lot of people have played a variety of games, but a lot of the times you can place something and then it goes in that spot.
Of course.
So you have to, there are abilities that are like that where you have to place them and if creatures move, then
you
so
have to place them again.
To it.
That's right.
It's
Absolutely.
less of having to fire at the right target, but it's trying to predict where the targets are going to be to some extent.
Yeah.
If they're not moving, that makes it easy, I suppose. So you have to pick the order in which you're putting them in. And then the follow-up question to this is, can I be a fire mage only or a frost mage only? Oh,
yeah, that's actually a good question.
Mage only, or will I always have to have some combination of these elements?
So within the elements themselves, there are combos that can be leveraged. For example, you were seeing there in the Ice Bolt and the example of the Elemental Empowerment on the Wand ability. When the Elemental Empowerment assumes for your wand attacks the last used element for a number of seconds after that spell was used. So in this example, I use a Frost Bolt, which is an ice element, and that applies stacks of chill to the target. Right? And now chill has the ability, when additional stacks of chill from another source are applied, to promote into a frozen state. And when a target's frozen, they're susceptible to the shattered effect, and shattered effect can be utilized against a frozen target by an electrical attack.
I don't know what it's like.
So you saw there.
Is it me or is it them?
Excuse me. You saw there that I Ice bolted to apply stacks of chill.
The fuck?
I then followed up with my elemental empowered wand attacks that added additional chill stacks, which created the frozen condition on the target. They couldn't move. And then before that frozen condition subsided, I used my arc lightning in order to cause the shattered effect. So there are abilities and ways by which within a particular element you can create those promotions. But, obviously when building your class kit, you want to take into consideration what type of intricate connections am I creating with my combos? And then in addition, how does that interact with groups that I'm going to interface with and other classes and archetypes that play off of the keyword interactions from my abilities as well?
Sure.
Because remember, Ashes of Creation is a group-centric, group-focused game, which means that when you take into account all of these different types of tier status conditions, you need to take them with the grain of salt that it has to interact with the party you're accustomed to playing with. And so there's some synergy that needs to be
I wonder how that's going to work. Like, could you have one ice mage and one
Twitch
fire
server is
mage?
having problems.
Something like that. Like,
I
wouldn't
did a
that just
speed
be like
test
way
on
better?
my end. I'm getting 20 up, but I think on the Twitch server side, there's some weird stuff going on.
Oh no.
So
I thought they were just trying to make it play like the new Star Wars game.
The live stream. So
okay, never mind.
I apologize for that, everybody. But the video will have the
sure
that Steven mentioned if you want to rewatch that. And then the next question here is, how will line of sight work with abilities in PvP? It's cleared up now, Steven.
Okay, got it. Sorry, I was just checking. Sorry, what was that last question?
How will line of sight work with PvP abilities?
Yeah.
I like the damage numbers a
So,
lot. I don't.
one of the things we're looking into, and you saw a little bit of this with the visual effects tech that was used
it could be a lot
around
better.
chain lightning, is the ability to have projectiles path around corners. And the reason for that, and the reason why I think that's interesting, and we're going to explore that, is that some abilities might have indirect fire. So if you have, let's say, a archer or ranger who has the ability to select a mage as their secondary class, and they might want to augment a snipe ability in order
like an
to,
ice shot.
go around a corner, like an arcane archer might have, right?
Okay, cool. It sounds badass.
Those interesting types of interactions, I think, play with the problem statement that sometimes we've had in gaming and combat, where you can play around a corner and try to block line of sight and play with that line of sight.
This guy did WoW Arena.
Some abilities might not care about that line of sight. They might care the distance to the target around the corner or the path that it's taking.
Okay,
and if it's
that's
outside,
interesting.
that path is too long, it might not be able to reach them, of course. But if you're playing kitty corner with a player who's on the opposite end of you, you might need to look out for some abilities that are able to path to you. That, I think, is something that's interesting, and I haven't seen used very much in the
I agree. I don't think that happens a lot at all.
Combat mechanics for MMOs.
And just to go back to the previous question to more clarify, in regards to, like, if I want to only be a fire mage, could I only be a fire mage? We get that there's combos and things like that.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, if you wanted to only, so let me ask that.
Okay.
If you wanted to only focus on one particular element, this might reduce your horizontal application in the design of combat. However, within one element, there are plenty of options and synergies and combos that will still make you relevant.
All right, cool. Just clarifying. And then at higher levels, how much will mana management matter to mage players? We didn't see a lot of that happening.
Oh, yeah, it's a good question.
Yeah. I know that we're not at the balance level of combat in regards to mana.
All right.
But for folks who are curious, what is the mana management going to look like for mage players?
Well, mana management, I think, not just for mage players, but for really every class, is a relevant resource mechanic that they have to take into consideration when they're utilizing their rotations.
Sure, I just hope it's not too oppressive.
And there are going to be abilities that will, sap your mana faster.
Having
than
to wait
others,
all the time,
and they're going to be situational. Now, with that blanket statement of mana is always relevant, there is also going to be mechanics and or class synergies and abilities that you can spec into to help mitigate that. There's itemization that you can utilize from a set bonus perspective, or certain types of weapons and tattoos that you can acquire. There are certain enchantments that you can acquire that might reduce the cost of mana use, that might increase your mana regeneration, that might increase your mana total pool.
Yeah, sure.
There are even specs that you can build towards if mana management is your issue, right? So we want to make it a compelling case that you need to think about mana use, because you don't just want to go 100% all the time with no downside to that. That's a very boring type of interaction.
I don't know if it's boring.
Right.
It depends on how it's designed.
We know we have a lot of new folks, and we've answered this question before, but in large-scale PvP situations with a lot of players, how are we going to handle particle effects and spell effects so that they're not overwhelming?
It was probably just going to be culling, right?
I think,
just like every other game.
A lot of commentary I saw in the Twitch chat around these
every other game
effects
has just
that
culling.
You're seeing today is a good example of how in the past, especially during Alpha 1, We talked about first passes and how art is always improving and art is always moving forward. Here is an example where now you see some of these abilities are a bit dialed back, and they're now within kind of the scope of what we would consider not too in your face and more amenable to massive types of PvP situations or large amounts of players. But in addition, we'll have certain features from a scalability setting standpoint that will allow players to even further tone down both the bloom and brightness of these types of effects, as also, in addition, some of the elements and channels of those effects as well.
Okay, that's good.
But I think you guys will agree with me here that, effects now are as opposed to where they were in Alpha 1, we've taken into account what people's feedback were, although it was always the case we were going to address them.
Yeah, they're a lot more
subdued. And we've implemented them in such a way where they're more conducive to large player battles.
Exactly.
Yeah, we'll be testing sieges and stuff, so we'll
that's what I want to see more of. More of those
don't
fucking
worry,
sieges and shit, like player battles.
And I think one of the questions that Keenan even asked was like, how are you feeling about the look and the visual quality of the class as well? So we will have a thread up in regards to the Mage archetype. It probably is already actually up right now. So definitely head on over to the forums and provide us your feedback.
Before we move off that subject real quick, I would like to say that visual effects artists are very hard to come by. They're one of the more difficult talents to acquire within the game industry.
That's why we have ChatGPT.
And I will say, for those of you who are following our project and who are excited about Ashes of Creation to come to fruition, and you really want those visuals to look strong and good, don't be afraid to become a de facto recruiter for Ashes of Creation by going out there and finding your favorite types of visual effects you've seen in games and messaging those people on a Twitter, on a LinkedIn, and saying, hey, Ashes of Creation is hiring, Intrepid Studios is hiring for visual effects artists, and we want the top-tier visual effects artists in this industry because we're building a top-tier MMORPG.
I like it, yeah.
Talent. So our
That's
visual
smart.
effects team is growing along with a lot of teams at Intrepid Studios, and you guys can be part of helping us acquire that talent by helping evangelize for Ashes of Creation out in those communities.
Hell yeah. He just gave him the fucking 30-second elevator pitch right there.
Posting those things, so
hit him with it.
We have something up right now. If you want to go check out our
copy
channels,
paste that shit.
Scroll a little bit, you'll find our promotion for our job
I love it.
So definitely send people our way. We're trying our best to get the voices out there, but it always does help whenever there's a little amplification, or if you know people personally, that's always helpful as well. We're keeping an eye out. I know that there's been a lot of layoffs, which we extend our hearts to those folks who have had to deal with that. As someone who has been part of that
layoffs, people
and
been
survived
quitting.
many layoffs, I think like it is definitely not an easy thing to go through on either side, whether you survive it or you are let go.
It probably sucks.
We are definitely keeping our eye out for good talent, and we see all the messages you guys send us when you're like, hey, check out this person, they just got laid off. So we are reaching out to folks who we feel would be good fits for Intrepid Studios. Yeah.
Great.
And
now what?
With that, we'll head on up to our art update, unless you have anything
else. Okay, let's see some elephants.
On, Steven, in regards to the Mage.
Let's see some elephants with like wings.
Of course, as always, the reason we do these demonstrations and the reasons why we show you our works in progress is to collect feedback and get your guys' thoughts on what you saw today. Keenan gave some great examples of questions and focus areas that we want you to opine on, but feel free, make sure you're jumping on our forums, the Discord, social media channels on Twitter and YouTube and Facebook, and giving us your thoughts on what you saw today. What did you like? What did you think could be better? What are examples from other games and other
I'll think about
that. MMOs that you've played that you enjoyed and that we could potentially incorporate.
Yeah, we want to hear it.
Okay.
We want to hear your feedback.
All right, I will.
All right, moving on to character goodies. Our character artists,
all right,
are just awesome.
That's a horse, right?
We've got some skeleton weapons.
Oh,
gonna look a little tarnished. But,
I can see. Okay, never mind. Yeah,
you've probably seen some of our undead creatures and whatnot, and some of our skellies already. But they're working on some more weapons for them.
Sure.
So that you can murder them, or they can murder you, whichever way it ends up going.
Yeah, I like the axe there. It looks good.
And also, we've got the Featherstone. Expedition pack.
I need that in real life.
Now has a 3D model.
Look at that. Holy shit, look at that. Bro, I would actually use that in real
Turntable of
life
that
if
as
I
well.
got one. Straight
Looks
up.
great. Love this. And remember, guys.
Bro, you could put the Gucci
you know,
print
on
right
the,
there. Oh, bro,
on the
that would
back
look
slot,
so
there's a few
good.
different options that you'll have
Bag
for
is
the player in
dripping.
order
Yeah,
to
true.
showcase weapon, accessory,
Damn.
cape. This one's a pretty cool accessory.
Yeah, this is cosmetic, a cosmetic one. So it'll
Man,
go
it
over
looks
that
good.
whole
Louis
slot.
Vuitton
But
bag. Yeah,
there
it looks
are other
really,
ones where you
dude.
can
I think the
swap out,
bag
like,
looks.
the little pieces and details.
The
which
bag
are
looks
really
great.
cool. And then we've got the Ward of the Implacable.
What's this? Oh shit.
Now it has a 3D model as well, looking awesome. I know some
Yes.
people didn't necessarily like the feathers on this one.
I
but
like the
think it looks
kilt here.
cool.
What?
You know, the
I
smaller
love
cut, that
the
looks cool.
colors. I love the materials. I think that they did a great
Yeah, that looks
job
decent.
with this set.
Sword
and,
could be bigger, but you
and
know.
the faction and game that this
is
represents
okay.
from the NPC perspective, I think, is super cool. Yeah, this is a great
Maybe
set.
I'll wear this outside too.
It will definitely help us with in-game stuff. And then we've got the Godsinger garb.
What's this? What the hell?
We'll wrap things up and move.
This looks like she's dressed from
on
Nickelodeon
with
from
our cows.
1995.
Sorry.
Oh, the
I'm
cows. Where are
I
the
know.
cows?
Jinsey did such a good job with the cows, and I told her I was
That's
like,
a
"We
long
Highland
cow.
cows, you know those like long
Yes.
fluffy cows," and she was like, "Oh."
Yes.
Oh my god.
But she was directed to
I
make
think-
some more
is this-
regular cows.
Yeah, is this one of the first kind of farm animal stuffs that we've seen?
No,
I
we've
think.
had the little ducks, but yeah,
Oh,
this
that's
is kind
true.
of
It's
the
a simple
first
cow,
of
nice
the-
udders.
Like
Oh yeah, for
livestock
sure. Really
that
high
that
quality
is available
content there.
for people to kind of
funny-
utilize animal husbandry with on their freeholds and whatnot. Yeah.
What's funny is it's just a cow, and normally, like, we are so weird with our stuff, so I'm sure you're going to see some weird deformities of cows in the future. Don't worry,
Oh, I
guys.
bet.
We have some, like, more bull-esque looking creatures as well in the past.
Cow asset game is
And then I
saved.
think I
Yeah,
have a
cows look
turntable of
great.
that. Yeah, here we go.
Okay.
Or we need the longhorn ones with the big.
This looks like the
longhorns.
cows from Chick-fil-A. You know the
I was
commercials.
tempted. For those of you who are old fans of like EverQuest, I was tempted to get Catkins to do a little scene with us, and if Catkins is watching this right now, he'll know what I'm talking about.
I feel like this
but
haircut that cow has
we
is
have,
almost like a
the whole cow
zoomer
thing
haircut.
in one of
It's
our
really
old-
close to it from the front.
Oh, cow thing.
Yeah, I'll have to send it to you, Steven, and you'll be like,
I think
okay.
I saw it.
For real,
I
for
think-
real. Yeah, true. Look at that.
It's pretty funny. I was like, oh, we should have done a little thing, but maybe we will with future cows. And then last minute, Jinsey was like, I finished the sheep too. I want to
Okay,
show
let's
them."
see the
And
sheepy.
so-
Oh, I
Look
love
at
the sheep.
them. They're
Damn.
so cool. I love their horns.
God fucking, bro, that's an elite sheep.
Look at the
They're
sheep.
fluffy.
Oh my
I
god.
Looks
can't
cool.
wait to shear them for some wool.
They like
Yeah,
being,
they're probably
they
some
have
cool
to be
clothes.
sheared. It's
We need
okay.
some interesting sheep wooled clothes.
Oh my god, look at that.
I was thinking, you know,
Wow.
part of like the freehold / animal husbandry design when you've domesticated animals and you're like processing them for
goats.
their
I think they just have that thing on their head.
It would be a really cool idea from a narrative perspective if occasionally your property and the things that you've done on that property have an opportunity to spur a random quest where one of the sheep breaks out of the pen and you need to go get the sheep back. And where is that sheep? And what did the sheep get into? I mean, those are great predicates.
I'll let you know,
for...
as someone who has grown up around like farm animals, they do escape sometimes.
How'd
Or,
they
like,
get
one of
away?
your fence posts will like rot and like fall over, and
Oh,
then they're like,
yeah.
"Oh, what's over
Absolutely.
here?" And then they start walking across the street, and then you're like having to chase them and get them back in. It is.
They jump
It
with
is
their
wild
legs.
times. But yeah, so that is our character art. We're gonna go on to our Q&A,
That looks nice.
and actually, it's studio update first. So, Stephen, if you want to talk a little bit about what's going on the studio front.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, we are finishing up our sprint next week, and we'll be in our hardening week prior to our next sprint. We have had some really successful hires over the course of April. We brought on a principal animator, a lead technical animator, a couple of visual effects artists.
Looking good.
Some
coming out next
audio
week, guys.
Programmers and designers. It's been a big month for hires, as you guys know, and as we've been
Coming out
posting.
next
we're-
week. How
we're
about that?
Stepping up hiring this year again. So
That's crazy.
A lot of success there. Stacy, Cameron, John, and Midori have been doing a great job on the HR side with facilitating those things. We had our bring your kids to work day. Was it yesterday or the day before? I think it was yesterday.
It was yesterday. There's a lot going on yesterday.
I know.
But that was also happening at the
There
same
was just a bunch of kids here at the studio, and I saw that there was some really cool like color books of our characters that they were coloring in. That was really cool to see those characters.
Made some of those pieces for them, and so
yeah, that was awesome.
Can you guys believe they have adult coloring
things are
books?
going really good at the studio. Lots of fun stuff.
I still can't believe that shit.
Yeah. And, we have a lot of more things coming up in the future we're excited about. So we can't wait for you guys to see that. And like Steven said, we are hiring. So please send folks our way. We're trying to fill a lot of roles here so that we can continue making lots of good progress is the goal. So that you can have Alpha 2 faster. Right? We know what you guys want.
That's
we're
right.
Working towards it.
That's right. Yes. That is what we want.
So
we want the second version of the game.
I'll just play the video again in the background so you have something visually compelling whilst we talk.
We're not that visually compelling.
I mean, we're still on the screen. I definitely...
I'll speak for myself. I'm not that visually compelling.
I mean, I think people would prefer to see the Mage over looking at us. The first question here is from BlizzBub over on our forums.
Are those all real
plants?
plants?
It's about dungeons to ourselves. How many dungeons will a party of adventurers have to access when they meet up each evening? In other words, will it be intentionally rare to find level appropriate dungeon content that is not already engaged by others? I think the concern here is more that
you never have time to do a dungeon.
There's a lot of contested content.
Yeah.
Will there be enough content for everybody, or will there be cases where there's so much congestion that like they can't find something to do?
So to answer the question to begin with, we are purposefully launching with probably one of the most aggressive and ambitious content schedule for an MMO at launch, I think. And
good.
But to the second part, so the answer to that is yes, there's going to be a lot of different opportunities of content areas that you can participate in. A lot of that's predicated on how the world gets developed, that unlocks those zones. But the second part of that question, Margaret, to I think your point and reading into the purpose of that is when talking about like congestion, is that not all content is equal. Okay. And that's a very important contextual point to
cutting down trees is not the same as killing a dragon.
We purposefully create tiers of content areas, and we also create types of content areas. And the tiers might relate to things like better drop rates, better respawn rates, better damage mitigation for your particular group composition. Better proximity to certain locations. Those create tiers of areas where content becomes more relevant or more desired, right? On the second flip side of that is there are what you gain from those content areas that might be relevant for certain classes or certain groups more so than others. So yes, you will have access to a lot of different content. Will the best or most relevant content that's to you or your group always be available? No. And that is the element of competition, right?
Okay.
And if things don't feel competitive around what's best, then you have removed an element of the satisfaction when you've acquired / succeeded in participating in that content. And that is a fundamental core pillar behind what Ashes is attempting to achieve.
I can see what he's saying.
The distribution of content, but also the interaction of players. And I think that's an important concept that we cannot forget about when we think about a question like this.
I think that you have to see how this plays out, though. You know, this is always a philosophy.
I know, I'm sorry.
But what does the gameplay do?
I know.
What the game do?
Wants to know about crafting skills. Are there any passive skills in the crafting tree that allow you to drop less material on death?
Not in the crafting tree, but there are in the material inventory bags that you can acquire. In the crafting trees, there are within those professions abilities to augment things like drop rates and gathering speeds and ability to survey, stuff like that, and tool creation, whatnot. But the dropping mechanics really more relate to your bags.
And so there will be different benefits to bags.
Yes, there's item progression as it relates to quality of bags, types of bags, and the materials they're most used for. Some of them are more PvP oriented that can reduce significantly drop rates for PvP as a result of that progression. So there's a complexity there.
All right. And Anduin wants to know about character roleplay effects. Player death means XP debt and losing materials. The RP community wants to know, what are the in-game lore repercussions of revival upon death? For example, does my character lose memory? Are they weaker? Does a period of time occur before revival?
I think it's losing memory makes the most sense.
That's funny. We had this question yesterday in our PI meeting.
That's what makes the most sense, I would say. Losing time.
Oh,
yeah, that's the real reality.
I hope you don't ban my account. Just kidding. No, I was gonna say that I'll kind of give the same answer I gave there. That question touches a little close to the metaphysical nature of the universe and Ashes of Creation. It's a difficult one for me to answer without revealing perhaps too much of that metaphysical nature. What I will say is that there is a spiritual element, obviously, to Ashes of Creation and its universe and story and the lore. There is a spark, there is a mortal coil that the character has, which relates to kind of the interaction of resurrection or revival and how it relates to the goddess of creation and your existence within that universe as a mortal coil. So there is lore there. It's just not what I'm comfortable commenting on prior to the game's launch.
True.
All right.
Yeah, true.
You guys will have to find out. And Azure wants to know about caravans. Does a caravan stop moving or slow down when it's attacked?
There are certain attacks that can slow the caravan, but basic attacks will not slow a caravan.
There's an alarm.
So you can try to trudge.
I have an alarm for 2:30 for no reason.
Yeah, they're that's correct.
Keep moving.
Yeah.
Run.
Well, and to that point, right, caravan speeds are built around character speeds, so that the interaction and interval of distance traveled by a caravan versus when players are attacking it is somewhat equitable. But there are certain types of items that you can use that can slow and or block caravans from a collision perspective. There are certain abilities and or status conditions that can get applied to caravans which reduce. There's damage that can be done to components of caravans which reduce speed.
That's cool. I like that.
There's lots of different ways to affect that.
All right. And then kind of going back to the resurrection stuff, but this is from Nick, and they're wondering about items. Will we have items that let us resurrect other players? We know that there are certain archetypes that will allow that.
I hope you do.
Will there ever be items?
I think that'd be cool, but they'd be rare.
I'm so sorry. My mind actually went off in a totally different direction. I got stuck on that thought while you were asking the question, and I missed the last half part of it. What was that? What was it
I do that about every 5 minutes.
That let us resurrect other players.
Oh yes, yeah. There will be scrolls of resurrection available. Although there is an element of resurrection that's important as it relates to experience debt, and being able to recover portions of that experience debt when utilizing higher grade resurrections that are only available from classes. And then there are lower grade resurrections which can be granted through items like scrolls of resurrection, that allows for parties who may not have access to a resurrection class be able to continue on, but it will be at a deficit.
All right. And then Horrendous wants to know about Tulnar lore. Since we received an immortal soul or spark of life by going through the gateway from Sanctus, how are the Tulnar players able to respawn since they didn't go through the same portal?
Well, so again, not to touch too much on the metaphysical nature here, the Tolnar are descendants of the divine races. And the Tolnar sought refuge in an area of Vera that has some element of mystery around how that occurred, which players will need to discover.
Okay.
And there is a connection. The spark exists within the Tolnar as well. And how that spark exists within the Tolnar is something that players will be able to discover as they progress through the storylines in Ashes.
You will learn.
Okay.
This one is about gatherables from
Good
Ruffian.
question.
They want to know,
That's what he meant to say.
What are the differences
Yeah.
between biome-exclusive resources? For example, do different ores give different resistances, etc.?
Yeah, there are associated with specific types of raw gatherables and resources that can be processed into refined materials that grant different elements of benefit and or bonuses or abilities to the different types of itemizations and or recipes that are available. So based on where that element can be found, there might even be relationships that are shared across different materials and or resources in those locations that share some of those characteristics that can be applied to items. So yes, it is specific to the material, and it's even grade potentially that are used.
And then Sen Garden wants to know about gliding mounts, which we kind of showed a little bit today. Will gliding mounts be momentum-based or feature any speed-boosting mechanics to make the experience more skill-based and interactive?
I hope they're momentum-based. I think that makes them more interesting.
Important thing to note is that all mounts have the ability to acquire up to 4 abilities and skills.
Okay.
Some of those skills will be propulsion based or speed based that can enhance or increase or burst different speeds. Some might be defensive based that would protect the rider and the mount for a short period of time. Some can be offensive. And that's part of what interfaces with the animal husbandry system and the ability to train those mounts in order to unlock the use of those abilities.
I think this is more of when you're gliding, the skill in regards to the player, like the skill of the player gliding the creature. Is it going to be more skill-based in that regard and interactive versus I hit a button, I'm now gliding, and I land, type of thing?
Not specifically probably what they're thinking about skill-wise, but there is skill associated with it. Where's my launch point? Am I going to, hit this ledge that I'm trying to gauge the depth from my distance and calculate the speed on? When do I use the abilities that I need to use? Do they am I misusing them at different times? So there is skill there. So I'm not sure exactly, what type of skill they're referring to, if not those.
Okay. And then this one is from Phantom Mex, which they want to know about removing player corruption. We talked about how experience
This is like the karma system.
But does gaining crafting experience specifically remove corruption?
Crafting experience.
Does gaining crafting experience remove corruption? Yes. So any experience that's gained by the player, whether it be through achievements in crafting or in adventuring or through other types of achievements, all of that experience goes towards your adventuring class experience gained. And then some experience can dual purpose towards professions as well. So if I reach an achievement in my crafting profession, and that grants me additional experience within that profession to rank up, it will also grant the same amount of experience over in my adventuring level. And to that point, anytime you gain adventuring experience, you tick away at the corruption.
Okay.
And our last question is from Hartison, who wants to know about guild meta. And I apologize if I'm saying your name wrong. I think that's the first time that one's come up. Will the meta for guilds be to just create alliances of smaller guilds with many skills rather than larger guilds with less skills?
That's a good question.
Remember, alliances are limited. The number of guilds that can participate in an alliance is a limited number. Also, achieving the ability even to launch an alliance is something that is very late in the guild leveling process. essentially, what we're trying to create is an environment where there's a duality between guilds that try to go towards population and then guilds that choose to forego population in exchange for a deeper access to passive skills that the players have access to. Will the meta be for many smaller guilds to co-locate with each other?
It depends on what the skills
are. I'm
are.
sure that will be utilized by some number of smaller guilds in order to try to combat the numbers that other guilds might have access to.
Yeah, this bird flying is really cool.
I don't think that that's a bad thing. I don't necessarily know if that's a meta either, because it's going to be beneficial for larger guilds to be allied with smaller guilds that might have access to those passive abilities that they don't have access to. So what I think the meta will actually be is probably a mixture of large guild and small guilds that exist within the alliances, so that they can overcome the types of challenges that occur in objective-based gameplay for events, where you need the smaller guild with the passives to overcome the challenge rating, but you also need the numbers from the larger guilds in order to engage with the opponent at the choke points.
I think that we should see alpha.
Is more that people feel that
let's see how
larger
it plays.
Guilds will decide to go with more smaller guilds.
Because I don't know what this is going to be.
Let's say I have a guild of 1,000
Yeah,
people
let's see
normally.
the alpha.
I'll spread that out into a bunch of 100 people guilds in order to get better benefits, I think is what they're trying to aim for, versus because there will be different benefits for small guilds versus larger guilds.
Yeah, I mean, is that what is going to happen? Will the largest guilds segment off into different chapters of their guild that are part of small guilds? Absolutely, that will happen. And the way that we combat the efficacy of doing that always is through how we design our encounters and our events to incorporate the use case of where smaller guilds and their passive abilities are necessary to overcome certain challenge ratings.
I wonder if that's going to be contrived.
Most beneficial for
that
larger
sounds
guilds
contrived.
to do that? No, not always.
I worry
depends
about
on what they're encountering. But you absolutely will see some guilds leveraging that for sure.
Yeah, they'll just have alts, or something.
Cool. And that wraps us up for today. Woo, we made it to the end. And it was a long one. We got to
talk about this Mage situation.
Thank you all for hanging in with us. And we hope that you had fun and enjoyed this, as well as getting a little sneak peek of the Mage. We know that you want to see fire abilities, so maybe you'll see those in the future. And also, we do want you to experience some of it in Alpha too, so we're not going to share everything all the time on here. But we do have some really fun updates for next month, so we hope that you will join us. We'll let you guys know whenever those things are coming up over on our social channels. Definitely recommend following us in all the places at Ashes of Creation. We're pretty active over there. And then we also want to remind you that we do have our Creative Director Community Q&A that is over on our YouTube channel. If you didn't get to check that out, Steven took some time he was kind of sick during it, but he did power through and answered a lot of great questions from our community members, Chibi Bree, Richie, SH, and Simurg. So definitely check those out. And of course, head on over to our forums. We want your feedback. There's already a thread, forums.ashesofcreation.com, in regards to the Mage archetype. So definitely head over there. Answer those questions that Keenan had, because they're going to be making some changes as we move forward, especially before everyone gets to see it in Alpha 2. And reminder that our cosmetic swap over is on May 10th at 11 a.m., so snag those. And of course, we just want to thank you again for joining us. Thank you to John, Keenan, and Trad for being part of this stream.
I got some shit to show you guys.
Appreciate your time. We know you're busy. And we hope that you all had a really great time here. We hope that you go for another month and are able to return to us with another fun stream.
Hopefully.
The VOD will be up here on Twitch. We'll also have it over on YouTube. We'll have the 4K version of the Mage content as well. And then this video will go out on Saturday with the full Q&A and everything. And of course, on the dev update, make sure you leave us a comment, subscribe to our channel, and make sure your subscriptions are live so that we can see them and you could potentially be spotlighted in our next one. And with that, we will see you all next month for another update.
Aw.
Bye, everyone. Thanks for joining.
Goodbye.
See ya.
Farewell. Now, number one. Whenever I was talking about, well, I want to see with that fucking lightning ball. We're talking about a situation like this. We're talking about a situation like this. Is a ball like this, and it's going and zapping shit like crazy. This is what we want to see. This is it. I'll show you guys. real quick on the YouTube. Shut up. Like that. Like that, bro. That's what it needs to look like, the lightning ball. Like on the edge, moving around. Oh, it's lit. Oh, it's lit. That's what we need to see. So, let's talk a little bit about Mage fantasy. What is the true Mage fantasy? What are the best Mage fantasies in games, in video games, etc., right? So, let's look at different stuff, right? I'm gonna go ahead and pause this, and we're gonna talk about this and have a little bit of a conversation about it. Best Mage fantasies: Gandalf versus Balrog. Okay, number 1. Number 2, Vanilla Shaman Chain Lightning. Yeah, I was gonna say Overlord. When Ainz casts the huge spell that kills the entire army. Because I think that you could probably balance that. If, for example, you needed like 5 spells, like kind of in the same way that like, you know, have multiple people casting like the dark mages, who used mother boxes in fucking Justice League. So like that's what I would say. Number 2, Merlin shit, yeah, but like a Dumbledore, yep. Dumbledore with that fire shit in the cave. We saw this Bahamut intro, FF14. Okay. Palpatine, yeah, Palpatine. And I would also say, like, in the last movie, the last sequel movie, where he does, like, the lightning against, like, the whole fleet, I feel like that would fall into the category of, like, world tier spells. Like, obviously, you couldn't just let somebody fucking do that, you know? But, like, if you had to cast that for, like, 35 minutes, and it had to be, like, 3 mages, you had to protect them for the whole time, absolutely. Palpatine, sequel, lightning. Okay, let me think else besides that. Let's think about Elden Ring, because we got some good ones from Elden Ring. Elden Ring, number 1. Elden Ring, Comet Azer, Radon, yeah. Radon Meteor for sure. Witcher Season 1. What was good? What was like good magic shit in Witcher Season 1? Not a whole lot. Log Horizon. Were there any like really crazy badass spells in Log Horizon? I'm trying to think. No, I don't really feel like it. There's nothing like ridiculously nuts. Alter Time, yeah. Mage and WoW. Yeah, I think Alter Time is an S tier ability in WoW. Absolutely. So, yeah, that's a good one. Sork Alt from Lost Ark. And I'll also say, I'm gonna be real. Archon Mage from D3. That shit was badass. I'm gonna be real. I think that was badass. Merlin? Well, yeah, but like, what did Merlin do though? Like, I'm saying, like, not... Like, I'm like, these are all actions. Like, yeah, Merlin was a badass mage, but, like, what did he do? Oh, here's a really simple one. Moonlight Greatsword. What's it called? Weapon Art. Art of War. Art of War, from Elden Ring. And I would also say Discharge from PoE. Yeah, like Discharge from PoE, I think is actually an S tier ability. I think it's really cool. Blood magic damage, similar to in Chainsaw Man. Moog? Does Moog do anything really cool? I don't really think so. I mean, I would say, yeah, actually... Mogna Hill. Yeah, I mean, that is actually really cool. Man. Belshazzar, let's see. Does she do anything, like, really badass? It's hard to say, like, what would be... Like, she does, but it's like you couldn't really have a player do that, you know? I think also you have, like, minor things, right? Like the Witch King, you know, lighting his sword on fire. I think that's cool. You guys forgot Dumbledore versus Voldemort? Yeah, actually that's a good one. And it's not even because of the spells, in context of the element in interaction. You know how, like, Dumbledore turned, like, all the glass to sand and shit like that? That was really fucking cool, man. That was so badass. I feel like this is this a pretty fair list of, like, really badass mage fantasies? I think it is. Saruman versus Gandalf? I mean, bro. The only reason why Gandalf versus the Balrog was cool was because Gandalf wasn't, like, it's so, like, they're not supposed to use their fucking magic power, and they're limited by the Valar that sent them, so, like, Gandalf can't really do anything, and the only reason he fought the Balrog at full strength is because the Balrog was also a Maiar spirit that followed Morgoth instead of, Gandalf followed Manwë, who was the, you know, the Valar that sent him to Middle-earth, to Arda. But, like, that's the only real reason that fight was cool, is, like, a very specific reason. I think no other wizard shit in Lord of the Rings was cool, and I think it was intentional. Doctor Strange. Like, the mirror image shit he did in Infinity War was really cool. Yeah, I would say that was badass. I'd have to go back and look at a bunch of other ones. Radon is really up there. Yeah, exactly. Like, well, the Radon Meteor is the coolest thing about it. Like, I would say Radon Meteor. So, like, here's the list, okay? So, Steven, if you're watching, if you're listening, these are the best mage fantasies, okay? So, and I think all of these do fall into a category of like, spell types, right? So you have fire versus lightning. And you have a Vanilla Shaman, Chain Lightning, that's also lightning. Overlord, whenever Ainz casts a huge spell, and I think this is like whenever he casts the spell against, who was it, the Riestes Kingdom, I think, and just fucking deleted all of them with, like, those giant, like, dark young monsters. That was really fucking badass. So yeah, I think that you could actually make a game that would allow for that. 100% you could make a game that would allow for that. Ainz is the mage fantasy. Yeah, but, like, a lot of the spells, like Grasp Heart and shit like that, like, you don't really want to have Grasp Heart in a game. It's a boring fucking spell. I wish they would use that less in the game. Or, sorry, in the anime. Why not? It's not visually appealing, it's not interesting. It's just, haha, boom, you're dead. It's like a fucking, like a console command. So yeah, I'm not, yeah, well, at least Avada Kedavra, like, at least it looks really cool. It's unfair to play against? Yeah. Overlord world items? Well, yeah, you could have that, but, like, all I'm saying is that you would want to have a spell like that, and I think having, again, like, world tier spells, like, fucking massive, this spell casts 3 days, and if you have, like, 3 mages, or, like, let's say for a siege, right? You begin a siege, and you have 3 mages, and you have to make, like, you know, a bunch of, like, resources and shit, but if they channel this spell for, like, 30 minutes without dying, then they're able to cast, like, a fucking meteor that will just fucking annihilate the castle, right? And I think that for no other reason, it is incredibly visually awesome to see that happen. It's fucking badass. It's like, you know, the best example best way I can compare this is summoning fucking Ivis or Rocklord, or whatever the fuck his name is, in Alterac Valley. Like, you hardly ever see him get cast, but if you do, it's so fucking badass. Yeah, Planetary Devastation. Yeah, there you go. Let's see the other ones. Okay, so there's that. Dumbledore with the fire shit in the cave. I think that obviously that's it. I think this is also an extremely high tier one. Louis Soix versus Bahamut. Absolutely. Palpatine with the sequel Lightning. I think this would fall under a, into like a world tier spell. With like, electrocuting all of those ships and everything above like his fucking like that weird Death Star thing. And then obviously Elden Ring, Comet Azer, basically either of the the current spells, like that one, and I think it's the Meteors are the two current spells. And let's see else. What else? Ritual Magic is also really cool. And Radahn's Meteor in the transition between Phase 1 and Phase 2, I think that's really fucking badass. Comet Azer is pretty much Kamehameha. Yeah, it's just that Kamehameha is it's like a Dragon Ball Z, so it's kind of not the same thing. I also think that Alter Time, the mage spell in WoW, is an S tier spell, and it should be in tons of other mage games. I love Alter Time. It is so well designed. Sorcult from Lost Ark. I think a lot of Lost Ark spells are really cool too. Archon Mage from Diablo 3. It's like you ascend into like some fucking like Dr. Manhattan level of godhood, and like if you keep killing people you can continue it. If you can't, maybe you die. That's kind of how they had like a fucking Surrender to Madness in Legion. Moonlight Greatsword, Art of War from Elden Ring. I think this is just like, let me see if I can show you guys. Where is it? Yeah, it is so fucking badass. Like, this is, whenever we're talking about Battle Mage, this is what we mean. In my opinion, I think this is the coolest version of being a Battle Mage. Is the Moonlight Greatsword. It keeps fucking... stop doing this. Let me see how to make the build work. Yeah, I get it. Yeah, it's like the weapon looks really, really cool. You can use those attack. Like, that's fucking badass, man. That is so cool. So yeah, there's that. Let's see, what else besides that? Discharge from PoE, I think is really, really cool. I love Discharge. And there's also like the Blood Discharge thing where you use all your health instead. I don't really know how that works. It's like a unique item. I'd never really made a build around it before. Blood Magic, similar to Makima and Chainsaw Man. I think that you can easily do something like this, and it would be really cool. I think that the reason why Makima and Chainsaw Man was so good was because it was like, it was people, they didn't even know it was happening. And I don't think that you could make it, I don't think you can do it now like, oh, it's this like super long range spell that you can just kill people with from like, anywhere else. If I want to be a true wizard, not a battle mage, well, that's what all the other things are for. I mean, that's what it is. What about Mage from Vanilla WoW Cinematic? Yeah, I would also say, yeah, Palm Pyro. Yeah, Palm Pyro, Vanilla WoW Mage. Moog, Nihil. Dumbledore versus Voldemort in the context of the element interactions. This would just be where I'd go with it for. Powers Blood Magic and Chainsaw Man. Makima's more manipulation. I'm just talking about the scene where she, like, does the head twist thing. That's all. Yeah, that's kind of the same thing, like Blood Magic. I think this is a very good list of, like, very good mage fantasies.